everyone. I'm going to give just a minute to make sure that I'm online while I'm kind of just talking to the camera. How y'all feeling today? Hopefully pretty good. Well, today's practice is it's a beginner's level class. It's a Yoga 101. So during our time together today, I'm going to talk a lot. We're not going to move that much, but we will move some. So the reason that I'm doing this is because I know that a lot of us are starting at-home practices at this point in time. And an at-home practice is very different from a studio practice, obviously. Not only do we have to sometimes improvise with props, a space, and other necessities, music that keeps failing because our system's not set up, as well as the yoga studio and a lot of other things, but we're also juggling responsibilities, chores around the house, family members, perhaps crazy kids or fur babies that are running into your space all the time and wanting all of your attention. So the first topic that I want to touch on today is how to set your space. So setting your space is very, very important for creating a container for your yoga practice, for lack of a better word. When we're in our practice, you may have felt, maybe you've practiced before, maybe you're brand new to it, but whether it was on your mat or off your mat, but that sense of aha, I get this, this is what it feels like to be fully present. That's the kind of experience that we're looking for whenever we step onto our yoga mats. So in order to, obviously that is not going to happen every time we step onto our yoga mats, but that's the goal at mind usually. But it's important when we're creating our space to remember that that thing that we always love to say as yoga teachers, that it's not about the destination, but it's about the journey. So we need to appreciate those times when we're not going to obtain that container. And that's okay, that happens, it's life, that's cool. But for me, this is where I practice. It's kind of closed off from the rest of my house. We'll get into the specifics of the actual place that you're looking for. Maybe it's a temporary space where you have to move a couch to have a little extra room and then move it back. Whenever you set up for practice, if you do need to set up a temporary space every time, I highly encourage you to set up 10 to 15 minutes before you're actually going to sit down and practice. Reason being is it helps our minds to come into that calm of being prepared, being ready, being set. Whenever we're running late for something or running behind or running to do really anything, it sets off our fight or flight response. And that's not what we want to be reacting when we're sitting down for our yoga practice. Another reason that I want to encourage you to clean up that same space if you are a temporary space holder of a yoga practice in your home is because when you clean up your space, you're closing that off. And not in a bad way, not like, that's my yoga practice, it's done, it's staying there. We don't want that kind of close off. We want the yoga practice to come with us through the whole day. But it helps your brain to not have that gray area between, oh, this is my practice space, and oh, look under the couch, it's so dirty. So it's about the purity of your practice space more so than the physical space itself. It's about the intention that we put behind that place more so than the physical place itself. For me, I have this space behind me that you guys have seen me practicing at for the last week or so, for the last 2 weeks actually. And this is a pretty permanent setup in my home. It's because I'm very, very blessed to have this loft that I'm in right now, and it's more or less a creative space. So my partner and I leave all the drama down there, and this is our space to come into and create. So if you have a space like that in your home, and you do want to set up a semi-permanent or permanent yoga space in your home, I highly encourage you to. I also highly encourage you to still show up to your mat a few minutes early so that you're not running into your practice. And take a few mindful breaths when you hit your mat. Another idea for a permanent or semi-permanent yoga space in your home is to set up some sort of shrine. Now, I know that this home that I'm in right now is a more or less temporary solution, so I haven't set up a good shrine, but usually I'll have something like a small there's a very small cabinet right over here that y'all can't see, but I usually have a drape over it with a bunch of crystals, and actually behind the camera there's a nice, beautiful painting by Jonathan Singer of Ganesh, and anything that makes you feel calm, deities, incense, crystals, art, really anything that makes you feel at peace and more centered is what should be in that space. So now that we're done talking about the physical space of the asana practice, of your yoga practice, where it'll be set up, let's drop into why in the world you need that space and how to set up for your actual practice once your space is set up. I have a stray hair on my arm that I keep trying to find here. So when we get our space set up, whether it be temporary or permanent, it is very important, as I've been saying, to arrive at your mat just a few minutes early. So even if we're not going to the yoga studio and obviously you don't have a policy on your own yoga mat that you need to arrive 15 minutes early. That would be ridiculous. And if you do, you know what, I'm actually going to give you a bunch of props, because this is something that I fail at as well. Make sure that we don't have a camera knocker over this morning. But so when you get into your space, it's important to set up for success in your practice. That means arrive calmly. And if you're not calm when you arrive on your mat, take a few deep breaths. And we'll practice that in just a moment, to center yourself and to really feel yourself. Not feeling all the situations that you're in, not feeling things that happened before your practice or dreaming of things that'll happen after your practice, but really being in tune with you. That's really, really important when we're coming into our practice space, to stay safe, to stay sane, to stay humbled, and to stay centered. So maybe even before we come into that space though, if you're someone that's very sensitive to smells, you might not want to do this. But if you're someone that loves saging and essential oils, I highly recommend setting up your space with a sage cleanse beforehand, or maybe lighting some Palo Santo or Mayan Copal, that's one of my favorites. Or maybe grabbing your favorite essential oil and giving yourself that calming breath that we'll go over soon, with your hands up to your third eye, palms together in prayer. And if you put that essential oil on your wrist, that's kind of forming a little bit of a vapor tunnel for you to ingest through your nostrils that beautiful scent. Hopefully it's a beautiful scent. Hopefully you don't do like dill pickle juice scent or something. I don't even think that's essential oil. But so okay, now that you have your space set up, now that you have the intention set to your space, let's talk about setting an intention for your practice. So sometimes a yoga teacher will come prepared with a theme to share with their students. This is very common for studio classes. And I'm realizing, and I have realized for the past few years actually, that that's one of the aspects of online classes that's missing a lot of the time. So whether or not the teacher sets an intention for the student is something to pay attention for, but it's also really a good idea to always prepare to bring your own intention, to prepare to bring your own theme. So when you go into your space and set up and take those deep breaths and really feel into where you are, it's important to also notice any parts of your body that are holding any tension or ease. And this is sometimes not an immediate, my low back hurts so bad, but it's more of I'm going to feel my breath for a few cycles. And, what's that sensation in my low back? It's uncomfortable. Okay, my low back is a little tense today and needs some extra love. My kitty's being silly right now. So that's one thing to pay attention to set an intention. Maybe your intention is to find relief if that's something that shows up for you. Perhaps you're dealing with something emotionally challenging, something physically challenging, something challenging in general. If that's the case, perhaps during that time of grounding and centering through your breath, you begin to form a word, or maybe even a word begins to come to you or come back to you through your breath. If that's the case, then maybe that word, maybe strength, for example, could set the tone of your practice. And yes, some of the poses may be hard in that practice that you set that intention for, but you know in your heart that you already own that strength that you need. Another example of setting your own intention is if you really have been overworking yourself and you're feeling drained and just not in your right groove, you're not feeling like you're on your high horse that day. This happens to everyone. It's nothing to be ashamed of. But perhaps that day, when you come into your practice, it can be for something like healing or taking it slow. An intention doesn't have to be one word. It can be an emotion, it can be a feeling, it can be a quote, it can be multiple words, it can be a mantra. So really anything that's feeling resonant for you that day can be your intention, whether or not your teacher comes equipped with a theme, with an intention for the practice that he or she will be sharing with you that day. So I think that's quite enough talking for today. Let's get into some basic poses. So find your space. If you haven't set up your space quite yet, that's a-okay. We just talked about how to set up the space really, really well, so feel free to pause me. I'll give you about 30 seconds to get over to the camera before I start rattling off more stuff if you still need to set up your space for today, while I get over to my space. Oof. And get my ever-important coffee, because yoga and coffee is the best solution to an early morning. Okay, y'all. So now that we're here on our yoga mat, if you're still with me, if you didn't pause, that is, we're going to come into some very common asana. So asana is the word that we use for poses in yoga. And one of my teachers, Eric, first explained it in a way that really, really sunk in for me. Poses are what mannequins do at retail stores. And they just stand there, they don't breathe. They actually kind of suck it in, huh? And when we pose for a picture, we suck in our belly. But asana means to actually breathe with it. Asana is the moving aspect of the pose. It's the art behind being slightly in motion while holding stillness. So the first asana that we're going to practice is our easy seat. So this one, obviously my knees are really high up in the air. I'm not ready to go deeper into anything from this. But for easy seat, this is an alternate for crisscross applesauce. It can be used for meditation, and it can be used for dropping into your space. And this is actually the seat that we're going to use for finding that breath practice that I was talking about, where we're going to drop into the space. So For me, this is really uncomfortable for my hips because my darn hips connect on the insides, not the outsides. Hips connect in different spaces. Who knew that until you study a bunch of anatomy? So I always like to grab my folded up blanket to park under my behind here. And you'll notice when I sit back down on it that my knees are more inclined to go down. Obviously this one's still a little funky monkey. I'm working with a small injury on that side from overworking myself. So this easy seat, you'll notice here, I don't know if you can actually see, I'm having some technical errors with my computer right now, but so I have one foot in front of the other. It's not crisscross applesauce where my ankles are actually crossed and my feet are tucked under. And it's not our half lotus with the foot on top. We're not even going to get into that today. It's just resting pointed toes towards the knees, one foot in front of the other. And if you don't have a blanket, maybe you use a pillow, maybe you have a yoga block around. Find something to prop yourself up on for this pose. We'll meet here. I'll give you some time to arrive and figure out which foot wants to go in front. Play around with it because our hips, just like basically every part of our body, are a little lopsided. So figure out which side feels more comfortable and sink into it. And here we'll place the hands palms facing down for a grounding sensation on our lap. Another thing that I'd like to bring some attention into is when you're setting your space and when you're coming into that breath, the breath that we're just about to do, I promise we're actually going to do it, is to notice how your hands are facing. There are a lot of mudras we can do, but a very simple mudra which is a hand pose, a hand asana, is to bring your index finger and thumb together. That's for rooting. And a lot of the times you see the index finger pressing into the thumb like A-okay. It's actually opposite. So the thumb will press into the index finger to stimulate the frontal lobe acupressure area of the finger. So you can find that. The palms facing open also means, or upwards, also means that you're willing to receive through your practice. Elsewise, you can place your palms facing down to ground through your practice, or one palm up, one palm down for balance. The choice is totally yours here. So find any hand asana, any mudra that's calling to you. And then let your eyes begin to close down in our easy seated pose. From here, begin to feel your spine. And notice if you can lift a little bit more through your chest. Squeeze your outer hips in and lengthen the crown of your head upwards. So in yoga, another thing I'd like to talk about is we talk about the crown of the head, and that means this very top part where the crown, if you were wearing one, would kind of circle around. So the very tippy top of your head reaches up. And your shoulders taper off of your back. Begin to feel your breath. I know you feel your breath all the time. But how often are you intimate with feeling your breath? How often do you feel each inhalation and each exhalation? A beautiful, calming breath to get you tuned in and rooted in your space when you arrive early on your mat before your practice is a simple breath. I like to call it the square dance breath, but it's just an equal parts breath. If you are pregnant, expecting, or have asthma, please just stay with the 4 counts in, 4 counts out. Don't do the holds at the top or the bottom, or shorten the holds at the top and the bottom. You'll understand what I mean in just a moment. So if you've got healthy lungs and you want to do the full practice, exhale everything out. And we'll inhale for 4 counts. So begin inhaling, 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold your breath at the top for 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it at the bottom, 4, 3, 2, 1. So that's just a little example there. You can keep it going or you can let it go. So little descriptive of it. So I like to think of it as a box. When I inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it, 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you can continue that breath. If at any point during your practice, as you deepen your practice, perhaps it won't happen today, but if you keep with it, maybe it'll happen next week or the day after tomorrow. You might notice that you want to breathe into 6, breathe out to 6. You can play with the numbers around that box and maybe make more of a rectangle with a little bit less of a hold at the top and the bottom. So that could look like breathe in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, hold 1, 2, breathe out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, hold 1, 2. So you guys get the picture, I believe, at this point. The main tip that I want you to take away from that breathing exercise is that you want it to be either a square or a rectangle. So make sure that the 2 mirroring sides, whether it's inhale and exhale, or whether it's the holds, are the same length. We'll get into some different breathing practices later on. And I might actually make this a series I'm discovering as I'm teaching it, because I have so much to tell you guys about yoga. So please let me hear if you would love to see this as a series, because that would be some really awesome feedback, and it would light a fire under my tush to actually do that. So anyway, let's move forward. When you're sitting in this easy seat and you find that breath, that's the time that I was talking about before to set your intention. So with that automatic counting of your breath, it takes up a lot of our mental cognition. We can't do much else when we're counting consistently. And that's a beautiful place to be to set an intention, because only those things, only those vibrations, those energies that are very strong in us are going to poke through those cracks in the counts. So that's why it's a beautiful place to set your intention if something's not already coming to you by the time you reach that spot. All right, so we're gonna move forward to our hands and knees. So maybe you move your prop, maybe you don't. We're not gonna get too far today, but I am gonna go just a little bit over. I said this was gonna be 30 minutes. I changed it from 75, because I want you guys to be able to digest and grow from each and every one of these sessions. So for our tabletop position, this is very common for a yoga practice. So you probably will do this in just about every yoga class that you're ever in. So in tabletop, we're going to press the wrists under the shoulders and knees directly under the hips. You'll notice here that my gaze is down. This is so my neck can be flat with my spine. You also can probably see some sort of dip in my back right here. So I'm kind of being lazy about my position right now. So tucking the tailbone slightly and sucking in the belly just a little bit, pulling the belly button back towards the spine, begins to level out that curve in your spine. And that's what we want. We want the tailbone and the crown of the head, once again, the very top of the head, to reach as far away from one another as physically possible here. Take a few breaths to feel the strength of this pose. Another beautiful tip is that the eyes of your elbows want to kind of be facing in towards one another. So the eyes of your elbows, if you're unfamiliar with that term, is this part where your suspended. It's like your elbow pit. So those want to be facing in towards one another as much as available. This will help to keep your shoulders open, your chest wide. From here, oftentimes in a yoga class, we'll do cat-cows. And I honestly don't know why it's called cat-cow and not cow-cat, because we always start in cow. So for cow pose, you drop your belly, squeeze your shoulder blades, and look up slightly. So obviously I brought that arch really deeply into my back here. And you're going to extend that tailbone up as far as it can go. You're going to press your belly down as far as it can go. And you're going to squeeze the shoulder blades together to open your heart up high. Usually when we're flowing through this will be on an inhalation. So from your neutral tabletop, we'll take an inhale nice and slow to drop the belly, turn the tailbone up, squeeze the shoulder blades. Exhale back to neutral. We're going to roll through that a couple times so you can feel it in your body. Inhale, tailbone lifts, belly drops, shoulder blades squeeze. Pause the breath. Exhale to neutral, tabletop, reaching your head and tailbone away, tuck your tailbone slightly. One more practice. Inhale to lift your tailbone, drop your belly, squeeze your shoulder blades, look up. Exhale to neutral, tabletop. Now some of you may have noticed that I curled my toes under during that, and that's because when you curl your toes under in your cow position with your belly down, it actually can allow you to press your toes in and drop your belly a little bit more. So from there we go to cat pose, and for this one I uncurl my toes because you can press the tops of your feet into arch a little bit more. So feel free to experiment with that or not. But we're going to come back into our neutral tabletop, tucking the tailbone slightly, wrists under shoulders, knees under hips for proper alignment. Those eyes and the elbows turned inwards towards one another slightly. And on the next exhale, we're going to really, really hug the tailbone in to lift through your belly button and lift through your shoulder blades to drop your head down. Take a big breath here. Simply feeling the arch in your spine and your body. And on the inhale, come back to neutral tabletop. So this one we always do on the exhale. It's the opposite of the cow. So on the next exhale, tuck your tailbone, raise your spine, gaze towards your navel. Inhale to level out, tabletop. One more, exhale, tailbone curls first, then the spine lifts, then between your shoulders, drop your head, and level it back out. Beautiful. All right, y'all, I'm gonna stop this at this point in time, just because I want to break this up into multiple different series, and that's kind of something that I just decided. So if you have something that you really, really would like to understand, have broken down for you in your yoga practice, or to step on the yoga mat, let me know, let me hear in the comments below, and I'll make a class and put all of that in there. This is a learning experience for every single one of us while we're stuck in quarantine. I'm trying to think of it less as being stuck and more of being put in a timeout by Mother Nature, where we have to go and think about what we've been doing and how we can better align with ourselves and our communities in the future. So I encourage you to take this time today or take some time today to drop into your practice, whether that be the things that we did here and now, whether that be creating music, whether that be meditating, whether that be cooking, whether that be cleaning. Drop into something that really steals you away from the moment and nourishes your soul. Thank you everyone for being here with me. If you don't know already, my name's Feather, Yoga with Feather, and Heather How to Be Wellness are my businesses. Thanks y'all. Peace, light, love to each and every one of you. also go over what Namaste means on Monday when we come back for series number 2, session number 2 of Yoga 101. Thanks, y'all.